places or who speak different languages. But then again, I also realize it can be difficult to communicate with people who live across the street from you or next door, or even those who are at your own dining room table. It's difficult to speak to anyone that you must do when you do so across any kind of barrier. But in this story this morning from Acts, Luke indicates the communication with all people is possible when the Holy Spirit takes control. Language and geography are not barriers to the working of God's will. Now, on Pentecost Sunday, today, we celebrate an existing Jewish harvest festival as the birthday of the Christian church. It is especially to be celebrated for the advent of the counselor that has been promised to us in the Gospel of John. The many, many workings of the Holy Spirit have been, they're throughout the Bible. We've discussed them here before. But in our lesson from Acts today, we have the story of the Holy Spirit's first activity among the apostles. And it is an indication of the Spirit's capacity to reach beyond obstacles to bring people to faith. Faith comes in this story, as it has done ever since, through hearing. Remember that faith comes by hearing. And Peter stands and preaches the good news of Jesus. 3,000 come to believe in that Jesus is the Christ, and they're added to the membership of the very first congregation. I guess we could call it First Christian Church Jerusalem, or if we're more prideful, we could say First Presbyterian Church Jerusalem, though I doubt it would have been 3,000. But whatever the differences, there were probably many, many differences. Language, places of origin that were indicated in the text, others as well. The Holy Spirit draws a very disparate group of people together, unites them in one faith. Now, the gospel story is revealed to be a universal tale of redemption, one that communicates beyond all human barriers. As we all know, there are a great many barriers that divide the earth's people. The most notable one are national boundaries, but geographical and cultural boundaries are not the greatest to overcome in order to communicate with other people. It is it's a great challenge, but it's also a distinct joy when we learn another person's language. And when we acquire the ability to converse in that other language, from my past experiences, just to be able to do a smattering of a language and to talk to a person in their language helps foster a sense of unity with people as you are engaging them in their language and sharing ideas in a common tongue. Plus the fact that it surprises many people because Americans aren't noted for trying to learn other people's language. And that's what is amazing to those who are witnessing Pentecost. All the known world is represented in the crowd. People are astonished to hear simple, untutored, untraveled Galileans who never wandered far from home, speaking in all the languages of the earth. Now, there are greater barriers between people than geography and language, as I indicated. And perhaps for us in this past century and now, ideology has been one of the most significant. The 20th century saw tremendous wars, both hotly and coldly contested, pitting people of vastly different ideologies against one another. On Memorial Day, which we celebrate tomorrow, we remember the sacrifices of those on and off the battlefield. And I can remember in many of the rural communities that I serve that this was the time to celebrate not just soldiers, but mothers and fathers and grandparents and siblings and all those people who made sacrifices in their lives for us, or who else made a deep impression upon our lives. And I guess it would not be long or difficult for us to list many other kinds of barriers that keep people from understanding one another, especially more local barriers. Anger between spouses, mistrust between parent and child, festering grievances between colleagues, disappointment between friends, the complete breakdown of civility between our political parties, the impatience of those of one generation with another, and the unkind words spoken between neighbors. Each kind of division could be explored in a separate sermon by simply telling the stories of one's own life or noting the behaviors of those around us. My friends, God created us for community and fellowship, but unfortunately it is a human condition to drift apart at the slightest provocation. We are like Arctic or Antarctic ice banks. Individual pieces just kind of break off and drift away in the cold, becoming alone and distant. And all of our story today harkens back to that first story of isolation and distance. That story of the Tower of Babel. Because of their pride, the story goes, God dispersed people and confused their understanding by creating all the languages of the world. Nations became icebergs, detached from the whole of human society, isolated in oceans of misunderstanding and distrust. But then on the day of Pentecost, the Holy Spirit comes to emerge among the people of all the nations, to melt their misunderstanding. And suddenly, miraculously, everyone could hear them speaking in their own language. God did in this case as God always does. God goes the distance for people. God did not require people to hear in Aramaic or in Greek or in Hebrew or in English. God used the apostles to speak in their own language. Their isolation was overcome by divine initiative. Now, it's not merely the lack of communication that our God has overcome. God creates the ultimate sense of community and of communion. The dwellers of Jerusalem heard the good news of Jesus Christ, repented of their sins, were baptized, and were recreated in a unity of faith. The many became one. The disparate became united. They entered into a close fellowship. And as we read in some verses past the ones we read today, it turns out this fellowship shared all things in common and attended worship together. If in Genesis, Babel is the turning of the world upside down, God's Pentecost works to make things aright. God's Babel has been reversed. God's Pentecost work has begun, and it continues among you and me. we have been joined ourselves to that very first congregation in Jerusalem. We are united with them in faith and take a share of their missionary work as our own to accomplish. What they have begun, we are called upon to continue. And so, we do not do this weak and unempowered. We have the same strength. We have the same fire that the very first apostles and disciples of Jesus had. The Holy Spirit is moving among the outposts, congregations of the world, moving among the mission partners of the church in Jerusalem and in Broken Arrow and in Braintree and Singapore. It is good that we celebrate this day of Pentecost as we join together in a common meal, because it is a reminder of our essential unity. And so let us not be surprised then when the Spirit shows up, blowing among us and burning the Spirit's way into our own hearts. May it drive out from us the remnants of Babel and use us to draw people into communion with God's people and into the kingdom of heaven. May that be our wish today. Now, I invite you to join me in prayer. And I want, as we begin to pray, that you give permission to yourselves to stop thinking, to stop planning, to stop worrying. Close your eyes, clear your mind, stop thinking, stop planning, stop being anxious. Take a deep breath in. It is the wind of the Spirit. As you breathe out the fire of love. Breathe in the wind of the Spirit. Breathe out the fire of love. Let us pray. Be in me the quiet wind of God breath. Be in me the stirring wind of hope. Be in me the scouring wind of justice. Be in me the steady flame of welcome. Be in me the consuming flame of love. Be in me God-nurturing bread and drink for need. Be in me, O God, rescuing